Nestor LeConte. Welcome to another edition of Convos with the Candidates. Today our guest is incumbent Guam delegate Jim Moylan. Jim, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome.
All
Glad
right.
to be here.
As we always start on these things, we ask you to introduce yourself to the public who may not know you. I can't imagine very many people don't, but please.
Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting when they don't, and if they had the time, I'd tell them who I am. But Hafide Guam, I'm Jim Moylan. I'm your 118th member of Congress, and been around for a little bit, especially had some good experience in Senate for a few years. But this time, I can tell you as a member of Congress, we have a respectable presence there. We've done some good things for the 118th Congress, got ourselves on some great committees as well, actually 3 committees, and that's the House Armed Services, which is very important to Guam. We'll probably get into those questions, and Natural Resources, which involves the Department of Interior, having oversight committee on that, which is in charge of the territories. We had great successes on that as well. And now the most recent one is Foreign Affairs. In the Indo-PACOM area is my focus, and I'm on a subcommittee with that. For these first 2 years, we were I'm happy to say that through different appropriation measures, we brought some great things to the island of Guam, as I presented in my island address back in July. And money-wise, which is very good for the government and the people of Guam, we're bringing in first FY24 was $3.2 billion. And this year, right when we're going to get back here in November, we're looking at another $1.8 billion. And that totals, of course, to $5 billion for the island. And we've made our voice clear that if you want to help the island, we want to help the nation, then this is the important thing to do. And of course, we'll talk about those different things that it's providing for the island, but most importantly, this generates into jobs, which of course means some taxes, right, for the employer, for the employee, and new businesses starting on the island generates more in revenue for the government of Guam into the general fund. And most recently, I saw that we have over 120 million, I believe, in surplus general fund. Good things to bring to the island, and then it's up to the government administration, the Senate, how we're going to help our island with these new taxes. Is it education? Is it public safety? Is it tourism? But my duty is to make sure we get the attention of the federal government, which we have, helping our island grow in the defense of the nation and helping us prosper in the Indo-PACOM area.
All right, let's get into our first question. What I've been asking of the legislative candidates, I'll also ask of you, the congressional candidates. But in your case, if you are reelected, the first 100 days, what are your top 3 issues that you want to address of all the, I'm sure, a whole bunch of issues, but what are the top 3, and let's address them one at a time, and specifically how you would try to get that done in Congress?
So we've been successful, of course, in our Veterans Affairs, helping our veteran constituents, also in the military defense, and our infrastructure too. These are all current things that we must continue, and we have in the FY25 appropriation measures. We had to ensure that those aren't removed. When we go back in November, I get back there by the 12th. Right away, we're back in Congress just hustling it. The House has cleared these measures. Now it needs to come in conference with the Senate. We have some good friends in Senate to make these things happen. But you never know. So I had to ensure the conversation continues in between, and possibly I can be part of that conference, which we are asking for too. Then once it passed the House and the Senate, it goes up for the President for the final signature. Missile defense, appropriation measures, we increased that budget by $180 million compared to what the President put in $100 million. It's important for our island, for the safety of our community, for the defense of the nation, defense, not offense, but the defense of the nation. Veterans. We know we have some good studies coming on out as well to determine with the Department of Defense Agreement and Veterans Affairs Agreement if a medical clinic should be built on the island, which we believe should, but we need these studies to be completed to show what's necessary. A lot of things are happening with the veterans. Of course, we want to ensure that they have their as claims are filed here, and we need a clinic here, that's for sure too, but we also need the numbers. And that's important for our veterans to ensure that they register on the VA.com or at CBOC so we can show these accurate numbers. And then finally, our infrastructure too. We have $146 million coming for the hardening of our defense access roads. We have additional funding for defense access road, meaning our main marine drive drag from Navy
It's
to
not just
Anderson.
a defense military road.
No, it's not
for
a separate
everybody, yeah.
road. It's for everybody. And as they harden that, they also are hardening our bridges. It's been a long time since our bridges has been addressed. And we saw the issues that GPA had to do to be very careful on transferring that heavy equipment and generators that they need to run the new power plant. So we can't keep on doing that. We need to harden this quickly. Another important one, of course, is on the infrastructure is our glass breakwater. We're one storm away of that collapsing. And we were able to get $300 million for that, but there's additional funding too that is still necessary and that we're waiting for to get back there to make these bills happen. Critical and important, and there's one more thing I want to mention on veterans. Medal of Honor. There's no veteran on Guam that has ever been awarded a Medal of Honor. There are probably some reasons back then in Vietnam time, but it's unacceptable. We put a measure in there to award or provide the President of the United States instructions to place these Medal of Honors on. A couple are deceased already, but there's one is still remaining. And if that falls through, that will be a great example for the people of Guam of all the sacrifices that we're making for our nation today and continue to do so to recognize our veterans here.
All right. Next question. They say that, the currency in Congress, the money in Congress is the vote. And so Guam is at a disadvantage because you are a non-voting delegate. So you've had a couple of years under your belt. Any new ideas as to how you would go about kind of navigating Congress to get things done as a non-voting delegate?
I do vote in committee.
Yes.
And when the measure goes on the floor and it goes as committee as a whole, I vote in committee as a whole too. We have great influences on important committees, House Armed Services, Natural Resources, and Foreign Affairs too. But I also have some good friends. And that's why we were able to get on these committees. We built that friendship. We're growing that friendship. We co-sponsored over 300 measures. And a lot of that has to do to ensure that Guam is included in those, but also to show my colleagues, hey, I'm with you on this. I visited the borders in Texas and Arizona, and I support my colleagues on getting what they need to say Guam is interested too. So when I said I need some Coast Guard cutters, fast response cutters, those colleagues agreed with me and made sure that measure went through. May not have it been on a measure, because that's tough to do on yourself, right? But if that measure doesn't move forward, of course you can reintroduce it in the 119th. But in the meantime, if I can put it in an appropriation measure, it works. And that comes from my experience in the Guam legislature in the 35th and the 36th. Those are all okay. You have good relationships with your committee chairman, the members of your committee. It works out. Of course, we would like to be voting, right? Of course, we want representation in Senate as a voter as well. But in the meantime, and that's going to be a long ways away, and in the meantime, we have a defense situation in Indo-Pacific area that we must secure. We have public health issues as well, infrastructure issues as well. If I try to focus on that, they're going to say, what's your priorities, Jim? The nation is relying on Guam to defend homeland, which is Guam, 170,000 residents. We can stop the aggressors here, right? And actually we can deter the aggressors here. So from what I've seen, from my experience, it can still be done at this point. The overall goal, we vote. We should vote for president.
Yeah.
You let me know if you want me to tell you who I should vote for president.
Yeah, we'll
today.
get to that in a minute.
Okay.
We got a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to ask you, and you're probably not expecting it, but should the House flip and go to a Democratic majority, would that change your strategy for getting Guam's issues through the House?
With over 300 co-sponsored bills, and there was a study done in the House, they do every 2 years, to rate all of us. I was ranked number 30 because of my committee involvement out of 430 plus. Because of my committee involvement, because of my co-sponsorship, and just the friendship that we brought. It's always going to go back and forth, but I want the Republicans to maintain, right? And it looks strong for us, by the way. Okay. But I've done that in Congress. And when you have all these delegations that we brought to Guam, you bring the Democrats as well. It's just not only one party. So you get along. You understand each other. They understand Guam. It goes beyond just being party. They have their priorities, but I can still, say, hey, I agree with that, but we had to do this for the island of Guam. So I'm not worried, but I'll be happier if it maintains the Republican majority.
All right. On that note, we've got to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our discussion with incumbent Guam delegate Jim Moylan right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back to PDN's Convos with the Candidates. Our guest today is incumbent Republican Jim Moylan, who is running for re-election. Jim, you mentioned before the break a little bit more about the military on Guam. I wanted to ask you, is Guam leveraging its continued immense importance to the national defense? Are we leveraging it enough? And what would you recommend to even leverage it further? Because we are kind of the tip of the spear, as they say, in the Indo-Pacific.
I believe we are doing what's right. Of course, as we grow, we're going to learn new things. CONAV or JRM there is in good conversation with our administration here. They're in good conversation with me as well. Department of Defense is in good conversation with me. And the committees I'm involved in, I drill them when they come before us. Tell me, even if it involves East, I said, what lesson did you learn, and tell me how it's going to apply to Guam? And they do. As long as that communication line remains open, the transparency is there, which the governor has, Joint Regional Marianas, Joint Task Force Marianas has as well, and our committees continue to work with me. I'm very happy that we continue to move this forward. The buildup is important, but it must be done right. And if the voices are saying, and the community is saying it's not being done, then that has to be echoed all the way up to me. We maintain that. Military maintains the respect of our culture and our traditions. That's a good thing. They're open to it. We continue that discussion. We continue to build. My priority is to make it happen faster, right? With respect to our island. So continuity is important. You don't want to start from going back. They understand who I am. They understand our administration, and they need to move this forward. So we're in a good swing. Now we just have to make it smoother, and that's the direction we are going.
Yeah. I want to ask about civilian-military relations going forward. There's been a lot of discussion about just how many additional military personnel will be stationed on Guam, and from everything that we're hearing, it will be quite substantial. Is Guam more and more becoming like a military town as opposed to, Guam that we've known as more of a tourist haven? Can you speak to that?
So the buildup is maintained within their current footprint. Maybe more Navy, Air Force, Marines here, but the footprint remains the same. In fact, I believe they scaled down some of the missile defense sites too. Our tourism is very important. We need that to survive in this industry. The military uses some of the hotels, sure, but that we need the tourism industry because they focus on the products that these folks need, jet skiing and all the great stuff, right? How do we get that back after the pandemic or after what we've seen in Asia's side? It's going to take some time until their economy builds back up. But Guam needs to advertise, and which I see in the papers that Guam Visitors Bureau is working toward that. They're asking for community information. The governor is directing GVB to do stuff. How I see I can help is providing this surplus of funds, which is majority coming from the federal government because of the buildup. $120 million are thus far. How much of that can be used for GVB to advertise? And will the tourists be afraid to come to Guam because we're thinking there's an imbalance? Well, if you look at Hawaii, 250 military personnel. There's other states that have also a lot too. But their tourism industry is in the billions of dollars, and they can't just be relying on the military either. So it's up to the administration to see how we're going to balance, and it's up to me to make sure it's done properly, the building is done properly, and I provide as much funding through taxes of what this buildup takes, through businesses starting by giving folks new jobs, as well higher paying jobs too, especially on the federal government side. They are short qualified people just as much as the government of Guam, just as much as every small business on the island looking for qualified people. And education, that's part of that too. And we're providing grants for new workforce development. And we have to get that done. If new companies want to come out here and invest, we need the workforce. Yeah. We extended the H-2B workers, that's for sure. And I want to extend that another 5 years too. But overall goal is the people of Guam graduate here, get their degrees, get their certifications, and stay and help our island grow.
Yeah. One of the other issue or concerns that was raised with respect to the military buildup is the lack of affordable housing and the military's impact on it. And I think the military realizes that too, because they're required to conduct studies on the impact and provide some kind of way to resolve that. Anything that you can do from your congressional seat to assist in that process?
Sure. And which we have. Again, going back to some appropriation measures, we put in an additional $400 million into housing for the military. So they spend it the way they see. And they're building vertical, not out. So more cost efficient. There's also the price of goods, too. And we put out a study to see what if we were included in the customs zone. That would open up our markets for possibly be a hub for transshipment on the island of Guam, bringing in more affordable items instead of it going to a big circle all the way to California, then all the way back to Hawaii and then to Guam. So there's a study proposed for that too. So if it's done properly, there are successful states. We're totally reliant so far on Asia's side. They have their ups and downs, but we really know that this is a must. And there's many businesses that are struggling just to maintain their doors. And with these taxes being built, we can help them by attracting more tourists if the island of Guam decides to funnel that money directly into attracting tourists.
Yeah, there's some long-standing federal issues that have been seen as keeping Guam at a disadvantage. The Jones Act, there is the airline cabotage, and then the Guam-only visa waiver. Could you quickly touch on those? And because they have not been resolved in so many years, over so many different terms of so many different congressional delegates, are those something that you would pursue, or are you focused more on other issues that you think are more achievable, at this point in time?
Jones Act is tough. Strong group, right? Even though outdated, shouldn't apply to us. Airlines, of course, we're looking for a partial exemption for the Pacific Islands. We went into partnership with Congressman Kalili on this, and for an alternative act, Pacific Island Islands Flight Alternative Act. That's what we call it, PFA. That measure was introduced. We had to reintroduce it 119th with the new Saipan delegate. We will do that as well. But we need the other airlines to come on in and on their way from Asia all the way, stopping over to Guam, drop off, pick up, take off, go on to America, Yorkonis, and then back and forth. That one's a chance because we're utilizing the military too, right? They're seeing the high costs of these young folks coming out here, wanting to go back home, to enjoy a celebration just like we all do, to enjoy our family over there or take a vacation. You balance that out now. And I think we have a better fight than before, than what we used to see in prior congressional members too. So mostly those two is what is still possible.
Okay. We've got a little bit of time left, so I wanted to ask you about the presidential race, even though we can't vote for president. But obviously, as a congressional delegate, you're going to have to deal with the administration. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but who would you support? And specifically, why do you think that person would be a better president than his opposition? And how would you deal with it if the other person won, the one that's not in your party?
Well, I support Donald Trump. That's our party, right? We maintain strong control in the House as a Republican. We get the Senate, it's looking that way as well, and then we get the president. Then I'll be in a great position for my colleagues to listen to. Economy is what we look at. Protection of our borders is what we look at as well. The current administration, not such a priority. The Republican Party, it is a priority. In this situation with our aggressor, North Korea, who just fired another missile, even further and higher than ever before, to CCP. Priority the military as well. If it so happens to go the other way, if I shed a tear, but I still got to move on, right? And as I mentioned, I'm a well-rounded in the House. I've been voted as a top 30 of all my colleagues, after over 430 of us. There's the Problem Solvers Caucus that also addressed me as one of the top folks for bipartisan cooperation. Oh, we come from an island. We got to get along with everybody.
Just as effective, no matter who is in the White House.
My voice will still be heard, and I think I can still get into those committees because of our situation on the island. They know me already. The island of Guam knows me already. They can trust me, and yes, I can be just as effective.
Yeah, and real quick, you wouldn't change any strategies in terms of dealing with the White House if it were a Harris administration?
We did quite well. We could have done better.
Well, she's part of the current administration.
Right,
so guess, yeah.
And so I think we have great wins. We're looking at more great wins in the current administration. So I think my record speaks. And this will continue that way. But if the Republicans win, man, we can just go like
All right. On that note, Congressman, we have about 90 seconds left. If you could look into that camera and give your closing arguments, why should the people of Guam put you back into Congress?
Well, it's an honor to serve as a member of Congress. When I walk in the Congress halls there, it's such a this is incredible. And to represent the island of Guam and the leadership positions I've held, I represented well. I'm looking forward to getting back there. And the experience that I gained from Guam, living here, working here in government of Guam, in the private sector, and the United States military as well, to be an elected official as a senator for 2 terms, 35th and 36th, those things I learned and taken forward to where I am in Congress. What I encourage you all to do is please just go vote, right? Your employer is obligated to give you some time. Take that time. This is a serious situation that we have with the Indo-PACOM area. We can be strong together, and we need the majority of votes to say that. And that's why I'm asking you on November 5th, start your day by going to your district and voting. I hope you vote for me, that's of course, but it's more important to me that you vote and vote your conscience. So thank you, Nestor, for this.
All right.
Thank you.
Jim Moylan, running for another term in Congress. I'm Nestor DeConto. Thanks for watching us. We'll see you next time on Convos with the Candidates.
Adios.